Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Shall I start, Shwetambari?
Yes, ma'am, you can.
Okay, thank you. A very good morning to one and all. This is Pranali Wag. On behalf of Shahanankar Kachhi Engineering College, I welcome you all on the third day of AICT IST sponsored online refresher program on securing IoT applications. Today we have with us Mr. Arshadip Baga. I welcome you, sir. It's my great pleasure to introduce our today's speaker. Sir is a director at CloudMy Technologies Lab, LLP Chandigarh. Sir is a computer science researcher and co-author of the Hands-on Approach series. He has noted for his research work and textbooks in the areas of blockchain things, cloud computing, and big data. His books are widely accepted at worldwide universities, undergraduate level courses. He is, uh, he is also recognized for his cloud computing book has been for by the ACM Computing. His work as a research scientist at Georgia Technology from 2010 to 2016. He has received the 2014 Roger Webb Research Spotlight Award. Sir, now I request you to start the session. Over to you, sir.
Yes, sir, we can see it.
Okay, so good morning, everyone, and welcome to this session on blockchain for securing the Internet of Things. So today in this lecture, we'll look at a brief overview of IoT and blockchain technologies and how these two technologies can be integrated and how blockchain can be used for securing the Internet of Things. So let's get started with a brief introduction to IoT. So what is Internet of Things? Internet of Things or IoT, it comprises things which have unique identities and they are connected to the internet. The things in IoT, it refers to IoT devices which have unique identities and they can perform remote sensing, actuation and monitoring. So what these devices can do, they can exchange data with other connected devices or applications, or they can collect data from other devices and process the data either locally and send the data to centralized servers or cloud-based application backends. And also certain tasks can be performed locally and others within the IoT infrastructure based on the temporal and spatial constraints of the application involved. So now let's look at a definition of, so what is IoT? It is a dynamic global network infrastructure with self-configuring capabilities based on standard and interoperable communication protocols where physical and virtual things have physical attributes, virtual personalities, and they use intelligent interfaces, and they are seamlessly integrated into the information network. And they often communicate data associated with users and their environments. So now if you look at this definition, the key concepts or characteristics of IoT systems to capture from this definition are: firstly, IoT systems are dynamic and self-adapting in nature. So in IoT networks, the devices can join the network or they can drop from the network. So these networks are able to adapt to these changing environments. Also, the IoT devices, they have self-configuring capabilities. In IoT systems, we use interoperable communication protocols. Devices have unique identities and they are integrated into the information network. So these devices are able to collect data from their physical environment and send data to backend servers or cloud-based application backends where the data can be stored, processed, and analyzed. Now coming on to a generic block diagram of an IoT device. So an IoT device comprises of several interfaces and connection to other devices. So we have modules like we have a processor CPU, a graphics GPU. Then we have audio video interfaces, storage interfaces, input output interfaces, memory interfaces, and various connectivity modules. So this is the generic block diagram of any IoT device. And specific realization of IoT devices can be, let's say, a single board computer like the Raspberry Pi or the BeagleBone Black single board computer. So that is a specific realization of this generic block diagram of an IoT device. So what are building blocks of an IoT device? We have sensors, which can either be onboard sensors or they can be attached to the device. Then we have IoT devices. Then we have actuators. Actuators basically allow taking actions upon the physical entities which are in the vicinity of the device. For example, an actuator can be a relay switch, which can be used to turn on a light appliance. Or an actuator can be a valve which can be used to release the flow of water through irrigation pipes. So like this, we can attach various actuators to IoT devices. Then we have communication modules, which are responsible for collecting data and sending data to other devices or cloud-based servers, and also receiving data from other devices and commands from remote applications. Next, we have analysis and processing modules, which are responsible for making sense of the data collected. So now moving on to the logical design of an IoT system. So what is a logical design? It basically refers to an abstract representation of the entities and the processes involved in an IoT system without going into the low-level implementation specifics of the system. So IoT system comprises of a number of functional blocks which provide capabilities for sensing, identification, actuation, communication, management, and security. So on the bottommost layer, we have the device. Then on top of that, we have the communication and services functional groups. Then also we have management and security functional group. And on the topmost layer is the application, which is implemented on top of the device. So that was a brief introduction to Internet of Things, the building blocks of an IoT system, the physical and logical design of an IoT system. So now coming on to the security aspects. So what are the top threats for IoT systems? So here is a breakdown of top IoT threats. And if you look at, these devices can be subject to different types of attacks, or there can be various vulnerabilities in IoT systems. For example, cryptojacking is one of the IoT threats where hackers may try to hijack an IoT device, and they can try to mine cryptocurrency by running the miner programs on these IoT devices. Then we have phishing attacks where hackers may try to steal sensitive information. Passwords can be hacked. Botnets can be deployed on IoT devices by hackers, or backdoor Trojans can be deployed where the hackers may try to steal sensitive information, or ransomware or worm attacks can be done on IoT devices. Then all sorts of other attacks are also possible on these IoT devices. So we need to secure our IoT devices using various mechanisms. And let's look at some of these mechanisms for securing the IoT systems. So firstly, we have the area of authentication. So what is authentication? It refers to the digitally confirming the identity of the entity which is requesting access to certain protected information. So in IoT and cloud networks where applications and data are accessed over the internet, the complexity of these authentication mechanisms, it increases rapidly. Next, we have the area of authorization. So what is authorization? It refers to digitally specifying the access rights to protected resources using various access policies. So even if a device is authenticated on a network, it may not have the access rights or the permissions to access certain protected resources. So these access rights are specified using access policies, which come under the area of authorization. Next area is the area of securing data at rest. So as we know that in IoT and cloud applications, we use multi-tenant environments where the same physical infrastructure is shared across multiple tenants or multiple clients. And we can have the applications and database servers of different applications belonging to different organizations. They can be provisioned side by side. So in this case, due to multi-tenant environments, we need to ensure the security of data at rest. So we can use mechanisms like encryption of data while it is at rest, like encrypting files or data stored in a databases. That is one mechanism of securing data at rest. Next area is the area of securing data in motion. So as we know in IoT applications, the data is moved from or communicated from IoT devices to the cloud. So we need to ensure that while the data is being transferred from the device to the cloud, it is done in a secure manner, and no man in the middle should be able to intercept the data and try to steal the information or change the data while it is being communicated. So for securing data in motion, we can use various mechanisms like secure socket layer or transport layer security, and protocols like the hypertext transfer protocol secure HTTPS can be used for ensuring the data is transmitted from the device to the cloud in a secure manner. Next area is the area of data integrity. So data integrity, it ensures that data is not altered in an unauthorized manner after it is created, transmitted, or stored. So as we know that due to the outsourcing nature of the cloud environments, data integrity is very important because we do not want that the data should be altered in an unauthorized manner. So once it has been transmitted or once it is stored in the cloud, the integrity of data is very important. Finally, we have the area of auditing. So auditing mechanisms are required to get visibility into the application and data accesses and the actions which are performed by various application users. So these are all the areas of, all the ways in which we can secure IoT systems. Now let's move on to a brief introduction to blockchain technology and how blockchain technology can play a vital role in securing IoT systems. So what is blockchain? Blockchain is a distributed data structure. It comprises a chain of blocks. And blockchain acts as a distributed database or a global ledger which maintains records of the transactions on a blockchain network. And these transactions are time-stamped and bundled into blocks where each block is referencing its previous block, and each block is identified by a cryptographic hash. So these blocks, they form a linear sequence where each block references the hash of its previous block, and these blocks then form a chain which is called a blockchain structure. So here is a representation of the blockchain structure. We have different blocks and each block is identified by a cryptographic hash, and then it references the hash of its previous block. And this is another visualization of the blockchain structure of the Ethereum public blockchain network, which is one of the most popular public blockchain networks. And in this visualization, you can see there are multiple blocks and they are connected to each other. And within each block, there are multiple transactions which have been bundled into these blocks. And on the bottom left side, you can see there are various transactions which are still not mined or still they are not processed on the network. And once these transactions will be processed, they will be bundled into the blocks, and then new blocks are added to the chain after every certain duration, depending on the block time of the blockchain network involved. So for example, in case of Ethereum, the block time is roughly 17 seconds. So after every 17 seconds, a new block is generated on the network, and all the transactions which have been broadcast on the network since the previous block was mined are then processed and validated, and the miners then bundle these transactions into blocks, and that the block gets added to the chain. So what is a blockchain structure? What does a block include? It comprises a sequence of blocks where each block is identified by its cryptographic hash, and it references the hash of its parent block. And this hash is basically used to verify that a sufficient amount of computation has been carried out on this block. And each block, it contains a valid proof of work. So each block, it maintains records of the transactions on the network which have been received since the creation of its previous block. Now, instead of storing the transactions within the block itself, we use a special data structure called a Merkle tree. The reason being that if we store all the transactions directly within the block, then the size of the block will become really bulky. And then the entire blockchain structure will also become very bulky. And that will have various other implications, like small miners on the network will not be able to mine on the network because of the bulky size of the entire blockchain structure. And that leads to various other issues like centralization of the network, because only large miners will be able to mine on the network. So that's why we use a special data structure called a Merkle tree. And the purpose of this tree is that instead of storing all the transactions in the block itself, we store only the root hash of the Merkle tree within the block. So in a Merkle tree, the leaf nodes are storing the data of various transactions, and we compute the hash of these leaf nodes all the way up till the root node, and then store the root hash within each block. So let's look at an example of a Merkle tree. Here we have a Merkle tree structure with leaf nodes storing various data items from 0 to 7. And then we compute the root hash, then we compute the hash of these nodes all the way till the root node. So for example, we compute the hash of the leaf nodes storing data items 0 and 1, and then compute the hash of its parent node and all the way up till the root node. So then we get this root hash for this particular Merkle tree. Now let's say any hacker attempts to change any data item which is stored in a Merkle tree. So hacker replaces the leaf node 0 with 6. So what will happen? This will result in the hashes of the respective parent nodes being changed, and these changes in the hashes, they propagate all the way up till the root node. So since the root hash has changed, and that root hash will not be part of the block, so that's how we can protect the integrity of the data. And the use of Merkle tree structure, it makes the blockchain structure immutable in nature. Why? Because there is no way to go back in the history and change any transactions. And a transaction, once it has been processed and mined on the network and bundled into a block, there is no way you can go back and change anything in that transaction. So this structure becomes immutable in nature. Now let's look at how blockchain technology has evolved. And the current blockchain technology, it was introduced by a fictitious person named Satoshi Nakamoto in the paper titled Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, less than a decade ago. So what Nakamoto proposed, that we can have a peer-to-peer version of an electronic cash system which can allow online payments to be sent from one party to another without the need for any trusted third party or a financial institution. So as there is no trusted third party involved, this can result in double spending being done on the network. So what is double spending? Double spending can occur when a party manages to spend the same money more than once. Let's say a user has 10 Bitcoins in the user's wallet, and if the network is not secure, the user may be able to send the same 10 coins to 2 different users. So that's called double spending. And in case of a bank or a central authority or a financial system which maintains a centralized ledger of all the transactions, we can easily detect double spending and easily prevent double spending. But in case of a peer-to-peer network where the nodes do not trust each other, it becomes a really challenging task. So what Nakamoto proposed, he identified that there are two key requirements to prevent double spending without a trusted central authority. The first requirement is that we should publicly announce all the transactions on the blockchain network. Next, we should have the system for the participants to agree on the transactions and their sequence. So these two requirements led to the development of the blockchain technology. The first generation of blockchain networks, it was the primary application in this first generation network was basically the electronic cash or cryptocurrency called Bitcoin. And Bitcoin network made use of blockchain technology to record transactions which transfer Bitcoin cryptocurrency between different accounts on the Bitcoin network. Then in 2013, Vitalik Buterin, he proposed that we can have a single programmable blockchain platform, and we can program the blockchain network using different types of smart contracts. And these smart contracts, they are implemented in high-level languages and they are deployed on the blockchain network. So instead of having different networks for different types of applications, Vitalik Buterin proposed that let's have a single programmable blockchain network, and the same network can be used for different types of applications. So that led to the development of the Ethereum programmable blockchain network. And smart contracts are used on the Ethereum network for programming various types of applications. And these smart contracts, they are implemented in high-level language. In case of Ethereum, they are implemented in the Solidity programming language, which is somewhat similar to the JavaScript language. So that was a brief introduction to the blockchain technology, and now let's look at how blockchain can be integrated with IoT and what value blockchain adds to IoT. So firstly, blockchain, it allows a democracy of devices where devices are entitled to autonomously execute transactions. So devices do not have to depend on any centralized authority. And blockchain enables an economy of things where devices become part of the value exchange in the IoT ecosystem. So what devices can do with blockchain, they can autonomously execute transactions and they can interact and transact with their peers in the same network without depending on any centralized authority. And also it results in reduction of costs since there is no centralized authority involved, and the network can scale as more and more peers join the network. So before 2005, we had closed and centralized IoT networks. So now what we have today is we have open access IoT networks, but the cloud is still centralized in nature. So these devices have to depend on the centralized cloud for coordination among the devices and also exchange of data among various devices. And in the future, with the introduction of, with the integration of blockchain technology with IoT, we will have open access IoT networks and a distributed cloud. So how does blockchain enable decentralization of Internet of Things? And let's look at the requirements of any decentralized IoT solution. So a decentralized IoT solution, it should support these three foundational types of transactions. Firstly, we should have a trustless peer-to-peer messaging system within the IoT network. Next, we should have a secure distributed data sharing mechanism and a robust and scalable form of device coordination. So if we meet these three key requirements, then we can have a decentralized IoT solution. And a successful decentralization of IoT requires enabling peer-to-peer transactions, being trustless, and there should be no centralized authority or a single point of failure. So why blockchain works for Internet of Things? Firstly, blockchain, it frees up centralized systems which are bottlenecked by trusted and centralized authorities. And blockchain will enable decentralization of IoT by facilitating transaction processing and coordination among the interacting devices. And also, blockchain enables a low-cost, private by design democracy of devices. And also, the decentralized storage platforms and secure distributed file sharing protocols that work along with blockchain technology, they will have the potential to replace the cloud-based file storage protocols and mechanisms, and also enable secure software and firmware updates for IoT devices, and direct file sharing among the devices in an IoT network. So that's how blockchain adds value for IoT networks or IoT systems. So here is an example of IoT device empowerment using blockchain technology. So what we have here is a smart lock solution. So this is a solution called Slockit, where we have a smart lock which is connected to a blockchain network. And let's say we attach this smart lock to any physical property where the owner of the property wants to rent that property for a certain duration, and the owner can define what rent he wants to charge for that particular property. So in this case, the owner sets up a smart contract on a blockchain network, and a user who wants to rent the property sends a transaction to the smart contract and pays a deposit. So when the user pays the deposit, the smart lock unlocks and user gets access to the property. And once the user wants to return the access to the property, the deposit which is held within the smart contract, it is returned, and the rent is transferred to the owner of the property. So that's how, we can program different conditions in terms of these smart contracts. And in this case, the lock itself has its own account on the blockchain network. So we are empowering an IoT device through the integration with blockchain technology. Another example is the Adept project, which is done by IBM and Samsung, where they have created a smart washer, which is connected to a blockchain network. And what this smart washer can do, it can detect whether its detergent level is going low, and then it can send a transaction to the smart contract between the washer and the retailer, which is supplying the detergent. And the washer can directly send a transaction from the washer's account to the smart contract and place order for the detergent. Also, the washer can negotiate power usage by sending transaction to the smart contract between the washer and the other devices between in the same house. Thirdly, the washer is able to detect any issues within the washer, and it can send service request orders by sending transactions to the smart contract with the service vendor. So that's how this washer is able to send transactions from its own account on the blockchain network to various types of smart contracts with different stakeholders or different entities which the washer can interact with. So that's how these devices are empowered by the integration of blockchain technology. So devices do not have to depend on any external system or authority, and there is no centralized authority involved in such an interaction. And these devices are able to transact with different entities in a fully autonomous manner. Now let's look at some applications of blockchain for Internet of Things in different domains. So firstly, in the area of connected vehicles, we can use blockchain and IoT technologies to enable smart applications for connected vehicles. For example, we can store the identification information of vehicles, the warranty information, insurance information, vehicle maintenance records, the history of the owners, All this data can be stored on a blockchain network. And these connected vehicles, they can monitor their state, they can diagnose problems, and they can autonomously, they can place service request orders to the service dealers. Next, we can have smart appliances where blockchain and IoT technologies, they are integrated to make home appliances smarter and also more responsive to their operating conditions. So as I discussed, the smart washer example, where the washer is able to detect when the detergent level is going low, and it can send a transaction to the smart contract associated with the retailer who is supplying the detergent. So that's how we can make the appliances more smarter in nature. Another example is the area of in the domain of smart parking, where IoT and blockchain technologies, they can be used to enable smart parking systems where you can, customers can directly make transactions to the parking meter. So we can have consumer to parking meter transactions or even vehicle to parking meter transactions. So a vehicle has its own account on the blockchain network, and vehicle is able to send a transaction from its account to the account of the parking meter and reserve the parking spot for a certain duration. Next example is the smart locks, which I just discussed, where these locks can be used to rent real world physical objects like houses, cars, or bikes. And the owners of these objects, they can set up smart contracts on the blockchain network, and the smart locks are able to monitor the state of these smart contracts. And when any payment is done to the smart contract associated with the smart lock, the lock unlock itself, and that's how the deposit can be held within the smart contract and released back to the person who is renting the object after the access is given back to the owner. Another example is in the area of supply chain tracking, where, for example, we can track food items from their point of origin to the consumer. So all the tracking information of these food items and traceability information, it can be maintained within smart contracts. And as these food items, they move from the farms to the shelves on the grocery stores, their timestamp locations can be recorded on smart contracts, which are deployed on a blockchain platform. Another example is shipment tracking, where we can use blockchain and IoT technologies and also RFID, near field communication, and Bluetooth low energy tags can be used to identify locations of these shipments or containers as they move from their source to the destination, and the timestamp location of these shipments can be recorded within smart contracts, and the access to such information can be provided to all the stakeholders involved. Then we have applications of blockchain and IoT in industry. For example, on-demand manufacturing, where blockchain platforms for industrial and manufacturing systems can be used for enabling a marketplace of manufacturing services, where machines have their own blockchain accounts and users are able to provision and transact with the machines directly, and they can avail various manufacturing services, and users can send manufacturing orders to these machines directly. For example, a 3D printer or a CNC machine, and users can send manufacturing jobs directly to these machines through the blockchain platforms. Next, we have smart diagnostics and machine maintenance applications, where machines are able to monitor their state, they can diagnose problems, and they can autonomously place service request orders or consumable replenishment orders or part replenishment requests to the maintenance vendors. Next, we have various traceability applications. For example, we can keep the production records of the factory or the machines which were used for manufacturing a particular product. So the entire traceability information for products can be maintained on the smart contracts. Next, we have supply chain tracking, where we can maintain a formal registry of products and track their possession through the different points in a supply chain, or product certification applications where we can store the product information like the facility which was used for manufacturing a product, the machines which were used in manufacturing the product, and various parts information and other details can be recorded on the blockchain. Then in the area of energy, we have applications like the solar charging stations where IoT devices and blockchain together they can be used for enabling solar charging stations where you can charge your electric vehicles and directly make payments to these charging stations without any intermediary or a payment gateway being involved. And in the end of my session, I will also show you a real case study on the solar charging stations. Another example is the microgrids, which is a localized grouping of electricity generation sources and loads where, within a microgrid, the generation sources like various renewable energy sources can be connected to the energy consumers in the same locality. And through the use of blockchain platforms, the users can buy and sell energy to their neighbors. So that was the discussion on various application of blockchain and IoT in different domains. Now moving on to the area of securing IoT with blockchain. So how blockchain adds value to IoT? We already looked at how it adds value. It enables devices to autonomously transact and interact with their peers in the same network. But let's look at how we can secure IoT systems with blockchain technology. So firstly, blockchain technology enables secure communication between IoT devices. And as we know, these devices have to communicate and exchange data with their peers. So how we can ensure secure communication? We can, every time each device wants to send certain message or certain data to any other device in the same network, the information can be encrypted. And blockchain technology and blockchain networks can be used for storing the encryption keys. And let's say a device wants to send an encrypted message. So it obtains the public key of the destination device, which is stored in a blockchain network. And the sender asks the node to get its public key of the receiver from the ledger, so which is stored on the blockchain network. And the message is encrypted using the public key of the destination device or the receiver. And when the destination device receives the message, it is able to decrypt the message using its private key. So that's how we can enable secure communication between IoT devices. Another example is the authentication of all these messages which are sent by IoT devices. So we can use a digital signature mechanism where each IoT device digitally signs a message before it is sent to any other device. So how digital signature mechanism works? So firstly, the sender of the message calculates the hash of a message, and it is encrypted with the private key of the sender. So that's how we obtain the digital signature. So what is digital signature? It is the encrypted hash of the original message, which is encrypted using the private key of the sender. So then the receiver, so the sender sends the digital signature along with the original message to the destination device. So when the receiver receives the message, it is able to decrypt the digital signature using the public key of the sender, which is stored in a blockchain network. And then the receiver calculates the hash of the message which has been transmitted along with the digital signature. And if these two hash values match, that is the computed hash and the protected hash values, they match, then it means the message is authenticated and it's digitally signed, and it's actually the identity of the sender is confirmed by the receiver. So that's how we can establish trust between IoT devices through the use of digital signature mechanism. Another area is we can enable discovering legitimate IoT devices at large scale. So whenever an IoT device starts, it can ask its root servers and it can obtain a list of trusted nodes on the network. And then the device is able to register itself on the network and exchange the information. So we can maintain the list of trusted devices on a blockchain network, and the devices know which other devices or other peers are there on the same network, and then they can start communication with other devices. Then for configuring IoT devices, we can store various details like the configuration details, the latest firmware information can be stored on the blockchain networks. And we can actually store the hash value of the latest configuration file for the IoT devices. And the network is able to detect any bad configurations and any stale configurations. And devices having stale or bad configurations, they can be removed and they can be updated, and then they can join the network again. So that's how we can configure IoT devices through the use of blockchain networks. So here are some shortcomings of IoT systems and devices and how blockchain adds value and how blockchain addresses these shortcomings. So, I've already discussed most of these, and you can go through this when I share these slides in the after the session. So that was a discussion on how blockchain is able to secure IoT systems and how we can integrate blockchain with IoT systems. Now, before we integrate blockchain with IoT, there are various concerns with respect to scalability, decentralization, and security and privacy, which we need to address to enable integration of blockchain with IoT systems. So let's look at some of these challenges, and these are also active areas of research. So in blockchain, there are issues with respect to scalability. So while commercial payment networks, they can process thousands of transactions per second, the blockchain networks can process only few transactions per second. So the reason being that there is a certain block time for each blockchain network. In case of Bitcoin network, for example, we have a block time of 10 minutes. So a new block is generated only after 10 minutes. Whereas in case of Ethereum, a block time is roughly 17 seconds. So due to this block time, we can only process certain number of transactions per second. And Ethereum, for example, it processes only 15 transactions per second. And if you compare it with commercial payment networks like the Visa or the MasterCard network, they can process thousands of transactions per second. So what if we make these block time, or what if we reduce the block time to few seconds or few milliseconds? Can we increase the transaction throughput? So there are certain constraints. We can definitely increase the transaction throughput, but then it affects the decentralization of the network. So to quantify these decentralization, scalability, and security challenges for blockchain networks, I have come up with this new framework, that's the DSS framework. And according to this DSS framework, the levels of decentralization, scalability, and security for blockchain networks, they are tunable with respect to certain constraints. And these constraints are expressed through this DSS framework. So let's look at these constraints in more detail. So firstly, we have the scalability and security dimension. So on IoT networks, we have the level of scalability. In case of blockchain networks, they are the level of scalability is inversely proportional to the level of security. So if we scale up a network to increase the transaction throughput or decrease the transaction latency, the level of security on the network decreases. So let's look at an example why it happens. So if we adopt a scaling up measure like the reducing the block interval or the block time, it reduces the level of security because a large number of stale blocks will be produced on the network, which will not contribute to the security of the network. So, I mean, every time a block is generated on a blockchain network, it requires certain time to propagate to the peers on the network. And if we reduce the block time, we can definitely increase the transaction throughput, but then many miners or many peers on the network, they will not get the latest copy of the block, and then they will be mining on a previous version of the blockchain. So that will result in a large number of stale blocks which are being produced. And then these stale blocks, I mean, they do not contribute to the network security in any way. So that affects the security of the network. So according to this constraint, I mean, the level of scalability is inversely proportional to the level of security. Next, we have scalability and decentralization. The level of scalability in a blockchain network, it's inversely proportional to the level of decentralization. So if we scale up a blockchain network or scale up the network to, I mean, increase the transaction throughput or decrease the transaction latency, the level of decentralization of the network, it decreases. So let's look at an example why it happens. So if you adopt a scaling up measure like increasing the block size, so I mean, if we increase the size of a block, we can bundle more number of transactions into the block, and we can increase the transaction throughput. But the side effect is that it results in the reduction of the level of decentralization of the network. Because now if we have a bulky block, we require more computational and storage resources on the nodes who are mining on the network. And then small miners will not have any chance to mine successfully on the network, and the network becomes more centralized in nature because only large miners will have a chance to mine on the network. Next, we have decentralization and security dimension. And the level of decentralization in a blockchain network, it's directly proportional to the level of security. Why? Because if we have more number of miners on the network becomes more decentralized in nature, and it is difficult to compromise the security of the network through a 51% attack. So in a 51% attack, I mean, if more than 51% miners on the network, they collude, I mean, they can rewrite the blockchain history and they can even do double spending to their own advantage. But if more miners on the network, they are honest in the nature, then there is no way we can rewrite history on a blockchain network. So more is the decentralization, more is the security of a blockchain network. So how do we quantify the level of decentralization? We can quantify it in terms of various parameters. For example, the total number of nodes in a blockchain network, number of peers which are connected to each node, the minimum bandwidth which is required by a node to mine on the network, then the minimum processing power, minimum disk IO or minimum memory required by a node to mine on the network, and also the bootstrap time which is required by a node to start mining on the network. So these various parameters, they can be used to quantify the level of decentralization on a blockchain network. Next, we have scalability. So how do we quantify scalability? We can quantify it in terms of parameters like the transaction throughput and transaction latency. Next, we have security. We can quantify security in terms of the stale block rate and the block propagation delay. So I discussed what is stale block. I mean, when the miners do not get the latest copy of the block which is mined on the blockchain network, they may be mining on the previous version of the blockchain, and that results in a large number of stale blocks being produced. So the stale block rate is used to quantify the level of security. Similarly, the block propagation delay. So how much time a block takes to propagate to the entire network. So these two parameters, they can be used to quantify the level of security. Now we also have a theorem called CAP theorem, which is the consistency, availability, and partition tolerance theorem for distributed data system. And according to this CAP theorem, there are trade-offs between the level of consistency and availability. So what CAP theorem states that under partitioning in a distributed data system, we can either have consistency or availability, but we cannot achieve both at the same time. And if we apply this CAP theorem to blockchain networks, they give up on consistency and they are available and partition tolerant in nature. So blockchain networks are eventually consistent in nature. And we also looked at this DSS theorem. So both DSS and CAP theorem, they are compatible and complementary to each other, and both these theorems can be applied to blockchain networks. So in the last part of my session, I will discuss blockchain platform for industrial IoT, which I've developed along with my colleagues at Georgia Tech. So let's look at this platform and how blockchain technology can be integrated with industrial IoT systems for enabling cloud-based manufacturing applications, and they can enhance the functionality of cloud-based manufacturing by providing a decentralized, trustless peer-to-peer network for manufacturing applications. So we have smart contracts which act as agreements between the service consumers and the manufacturing resources to provide various on-demand manufacturing services. So for example, we can integrate legacy shop floor equipment into the cloud environment and also enable various decentralized peer-to-peer manufacturing applications through this platform. For example, users can send manufacturing orders along with the CAD files and also make payments directly to these machines through the blockchain platform and send manufacturing orders to these machines directly. The key enabler component in this blockchain platform for industrial IoT is the IoT device. And this IoT device, it comprises a single board computer and an interface board. So interface board, it is connected or attached to the machine. And then it is equipped with various sensors and actuators. And on the single board computer, we have various modules, like we have a blockchain service, we have a blockchain wallet, then we have various messaging services and protocols which are implemented. Then we have device configuration modules, device manager, a controller service, and sensor and actuator connectivity drivers. And there is a connection to the cloud and the blockchain network through the single board computer. So this blockchain platform for industrial IoT, the device, it runs a BP-IIoT controller, and this controller, it implements various interfaces. So we have northbound interface, southbound, eastbound, and westbound interfaces. So let's look at these interfaces in more detail. The northbound interface, it allows an IoT device to publish data to the cloud. And for communication with cloud, we use various protocols like MQTT or REST. And the northbound APIs, they include various cloud connectivity libraries. And the cloud-based backend system, it comprises the big data analytics stack and various billing and metering services. And also big data analytics stack can be set up in the cloud and used for analysis of the data collected from the IoT devices. Next, we have the southbound interface, which is the interface between the interface board and the single board computer, which allows the single board computer to capture sensor data from the interface board and also send control signals to the actuators which are attached to the interface board. So here is a reference design of an interface board which is connected to a machine. We can have various sensors and actuators, and this interface board has a serial interface to the single board computer. Next, we have the eastbound interface, which is the interface that allows users to configure, the devices to exchange data with other devices in the same network. So it enables connectivity to external systems over digital, analog, serial, and USB connections. And for wireless connectivity, we can use various wireless protocols like the Zigbee, LoRa, or Bluetooth Low Energy. Finally, we have the westbound interface, which is the admin bridge, which allows users to configure and manage the IoT devices remotely. Just like they would configure a Wi-Fi router in a remote manner, the users can configure the IoT devices using the westbound interface. And for the westbound interface, we have used the network configuration protocol or the netconf protocol, which is a session-based network management protocol. Now we can have various deployment topologies in this blockchain platform for industrial IoT. We can have a point-to-point topology where we have a single end node, which is connected over a wireless link to a gateway node. And the gateway is directly connected to the internet, and it gathers data from the end node and publishes data to the cloud. The range of this point-to-point topology, it's limited to a single hop, and it depends on the wireless communication technology or protocol being used. So depending on the wireless technology, for example, Zigbee or LoRa, the range of the network depends on this wireless technology. Then we have star topology, where we have multiple end nodes and they are connected to a single gateway node, and gateway then publishes data to the cloud. Finally, we have the mesh topology, where we have multiple end nodes and we have router nodes which route data from the end nodes to the gateway node, and gateway then publishes data to the cloud. So this mesh topology, it can be implemented with wireless protocols like the Zigbee Digimesh protocol for creating the wireless mesh networks. Now, in case of this blockchain platform for industrial IoT, we can have various types of IoT devices, depending on the types of interfaces they have implemented. So, for example, in case of an end node, which implements a southbound interface, eastbound and westbound interface, the end node depends on a gateway node to publish data to the cloud. So end node doesn't have the northbound interface on the node. Next, we have the router node, which implements only the eastbound and westbound interfaces, and router nodes, they route data from the end nodes to the gateway. Then we have gateway, which implements the northbound, eastbound, and westbound interfaces, and it sends data collected from the end nodes to the cloud or over the internet. Also, we can have a full node, which implements all these four interfaces. So full node directly gets data from the machines and publishes the data to the cloud. So that was a case study on a blockchain platform for industrial IoT and how we can enhance the functionality of cloud-based manufacturing applications by integrating blockchain with industrial machines. Now, one more case study which I want to share is this blockchain and IoT powered solar charging stations. So let's look at this case study. I mean, what this system does. We can create solar charging stations which are connected to a blockchain network, and each charging station has its own account on the blockchain network, and users are able to send transactions to a particular charging station to activate the charging station for a certain duration and charge their electric vehicles by connecting their vehicles to the charging station and making payment directly to the charging station's account. So this is the architecture of the solar charge system. So here we have a server which is running the blockchain client, and server is also exposing a web API. So a REST API is implemented on the server, and server interfaces with a blockchain network. For example, the Ethereum public blockchain network can be interfaced. And then we have a mobile application and an IoT device. So how this system is set up? So firstly, the contract owner deploys a smart contract on the blockchain network, and the owner adds the details of various stations to the smart contract. So for example, the location of a particular station, the rate per minute for charging a device from that station. So all these details are added to the smart contract. And the owner of the system sets up the smart contract. Then we have different users who are able to register with the smart contract and purchase a virtual currency called Solar Coins. So Solar Coins is a virtual coin which I've created for this particular case study, where these coins can be purchased by paying in the Ether cryptocurrency. Ether is the native coin for the native token for the Ethereum public blockchain network. So users can pay Ether and get Solar Coins in return for Ether. And all these transactions the users are able to do through the mobile application. And mobile application, it accesses the server through REST API calls. And then we also have an IoT device which is attached to the charging station. And the device, it monitors the state of the smart contract through the REST API calls, and server is connected to the blockchain network. So device is able to monitor the status of the smart contract. And whenever it detects that a certain payment has come for that particular charging station, the device activates the charging station. So here is the actual prototype based on the BeagleBone Black single board computer. And to this single board computer, we have attached a relay and a solar module and a universal plug. And users are able to send transactions to the smart contract associated with the charging station through a mobile application and activate this charging station for a certain duration by sending the Solar Coins from the user's wallet to the charging station's account. So this is the prototype based on BeagleBone Black, relay module, and a universal plug. And to each charging station, we attached a QR code. And within the mobile application, the user can scan this QR code. So let's look at a short demo of the SolarCharge mobile application. So when the user logs into the SolarCharge mobile application, the user can see the user's wallet information, and this wallet is maintained on a smart contract on the blockchain network. So this is the snapshot of the user's wallet, where user can see the wallet's address, the amount which has user has paid in Ether cryptocurrency, and the Solar Coin balance. So users can purchase Solar Coins by paying in Ether. Now let's say user wants to charge a device. The user scans the QR code of the charging station. And when user scans the QR code, it returns the details of the charging station. For example, the location of the charging station, the station ID, and the rate per minute for activating that charging station. So here, let's say user has to pay 10 Solar Coins per minute for activating the charging station. Then user specifies the minutes to charge the device, and user here specifies, let's say, 1 minute. And the application tells that user has to pay 10 coins for that particular charging session, and then the transaction is sent to the blockchain network. So that's the mobile application part. So users can purchase Solar Coins and make payments in Solar Coins to charging stations for activating the charging stations and charging their devices. Then the next part is of the SolarCharge device, where we have the charging station. And here the charging station, it monitors the state of its smart contract on the blockchain network. And as soon as it detects a payment, you can see that the device, the relay module gets activated, and this universal plug, it gets activated, and user can connect the user's device and charge the device for a certain duration. And depending on the amount paid by the user, the device, the charging station remains active for that particular duration. So with this, I'll like to wrap up my session, and for further reading, you can refer to my series of textbooks on cloud, IoT, big data analytics, blockchain applications, and cloud solutions architect for more such case studies, examples, and exercises. And now I'm open to your questions. If you have any questions, do let me know. So in case there are no questions, then we can conclude this session. I hope this session was useful to you. And I'll be sharing these slides and you can go through these slides later on. And thank you everyone for your time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your wonderful session. You have successfully helped us for our 3 sessions, sir. So in future also we are looking forward you for your sessions, sir. Thank you.
Sure, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you.